This is Philip Quint, and you're watching Mr. Media.
Today on Mr. Media, I'll talk to author Katy Franco about her new book, Chemorella. It's the story of one woman's fairy tale journey through chemotherapy and self-discovery. Stick around. What doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. It makes your hair fall out in really big clumps. Mr. Media is recorded live before a studio audience of patients who laugh in the face of chemo and radiation, but wish they could stomach the contents of this show in the new media capital of the world, St. Petersburg, Florida. Creative people are growing more Creative people are growing more willing to laugh in the face of cancer. Ever seen the Showtime comedy The Big C? The main character, Kathy, makes jokes about being diagnosed with cancer, surviving treatment for it, and defying it to take her on again. Of course, the show has included a storyline about talking to ghosts, so maybe that's not the best example. And now there's Katy Franco's new children's book, Chemorella. It's a modern take on fairy tales such as Cinderella, right down to a missing shoe. Now, Franco, a breast cancer survivor, and her husband, Ken Phillips, have produced a charming children's story about a single young woman who must choose between hair and life when she is diagnosed with the Big C. Now, as a dad and someone who went through a bout of Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma just a few years ago myself, I can see this being a great tool for teaching young girls to cope with the disease, and it might even be a bit of a help for grown women as well. And the book, with illustrations by Scott Sackett, is presented in side-by-side English and Spanish. It's a sweet story, and its author is here to talk about it with us today. Katy Franco, welcome to Mr. Media.
Well, thank you, Mr. Media, for that introduction. Thank you for having me with you.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. What made you decide to go so public with your own cancer experience? I know some people would take it and just want to keep it to themselves and just want to put it behind them, frankly.
Well, I'm from Puerto Rico, and I live now in Hollywood with my husband. So when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, I was in Hollywood, and I had done a lot of work in Puerto Rico as an actress. I had done soap operas. I had been on TV a lot. So I was and am a public figure in Puerto Rico, and I felt at the time that I wanted to. It just happened that I became public about it because I thought that that way I could help other women that might be diagnosed, that might be afraid of going through treatment, chemotherapy, radiation, and just maybe alleviate a little bit the fear that women and people feel in general when there's a diagnosis of cancer. And so I went public and I told everybody my experience back home in Puerto Rico, you know, with the details and the surgery and everything I had gone through, and the rest is history.
And you went public with it after it was done, I assume. Probably.
I went public. I did. I had a lumpectomy, so they removed the tumor. I had chemotherapy. I had radiation, and after I had those treatments, I went to Puerto Rico. So it was maybe 7 months after I was diagnosed. You know, so I was very very weak, maybe, as you can say, you know, physically, you know, because radiation and chemotherapy, when you do them together, they take another toll on you. But you know, mentally and spiritually, I was pretty strong. Well, you know, I had survived it till that time. So yeah, I went public. I did a press conference and I talked about everything, and then it just became something much bigger.
So you because you were a public figure there, I guess people were aware that something was different.
Yeah, well, I announced it. I sent a press release from Hollywood. My mother had sent me a little article on Kyle Minogue, the Australian singer, because she was diagnosed more or less at the same time I was. She was diagnosed with breast cancer. And this little article said that she was going to go to hospitals and and share with children and try to help children with cancer. And my mother said, this might be something that that you might be interested. And when I read that, and I read that she had gone public, I thought, you know what, I'm going to do it also, because I don't want people to think that I'm dying. I want people to know what I went through. I don't know at the end what's going to be the outcome of this. And, it was my country and it was my people, and I did it. So
How long ago was this?
this is in 2005, 7.5 years ago.
And you, from the looks of you, you look quite healthy. I assume you've been in remission ever since?
I've been in remission ever since. I'm working hard, and taking care of myself, of my health, and in a different way that I did before. But yeah, I'm healthy. I feel good. I feel my energy is back. My memory came back, because your memory sometimes goes with the chemo. And even though I was performing and doing, all this speaking engagements, sometimes your mind would go, and I would go, well, what is it that I had to say right now? And trying to struggle with that. As an actress, you're paid for your memory.
Right.
So when you lose it, you go, oh my God, is it ever going to come back? That has come back completely. So I feel very confident now when I talk that at least I'm not going to talk to you and go, well, what was I just saying to you, Bob? That kind of thing.
Now, before the cancer, were you ever one to talk publicly about your health, or things that were rather personal?
Well, there was really no reason. I mean, I had some thyroid issues back in 2001. I was a hyper person, and I was always seemed to be very high, and it was because I had an overactive thyroid. But there was really no reason to talk about that. I didn't even know that that was a very common issue between women, and actually something pretty serious. But no, I never talked about that. I guess I talked before I was diagnosed about, the terrible relationships I had with boyfriends, my life in Hollywood, I did stand-up comedy back home for women. I had a show called For Women Only, and so there were jokes about relationships and, just about my mishappenings, my woman mishappenings every day. That's what I kind of talked about. But it was public that I worked out, that I ate well. I had been a gymnast. I did ballet for many, many, many years. I only started going to the gym when I moved to Hollywood. I went, oh, there's a gym. Okay, let's do that.
And when did you start thinking about putting all this into a book, and why a children's book, and why the take on? Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I'm assuming that it's Cinderella.
Yeah. The title Chemorella comes from chemotherapy and Cinderella, so it's a take on both words. Well, at the beginning, my husband and I wrote this for ourselves. We wanted to have a memory of something positive, of something happy that had come from something so difficult and so terrible to go through, because it is a very hard experience to go through. And like I mentioned before, you don't know what the outcome is. And so we wrote it for ourselves. But, during overcoming breast cancer treatment, I started doing things to keep myself up, to keep my spirit happy, to overcome it. One of those things was doing stand-up comedy at the Laugh Factory here in Hollywood. That kept my spirit going. It gave me strength. Every day before chemotherapy, there I was on stage performing, and then when I'd go into the chemotherapy, I was in a whole different mood. That was very positive. I started doing jeweled sneakers and decorating T-shirts and using bright colors and rhinestones and all that bling bling that we were, and I did all these things to occupy my mind and focus on something positive. I also, we had a rabbit, and the rabbit got injured by a raccoon, so I took care of the rabbit. there's a whole story with that. You know, when you have to take care of someone else and focus on someone else, you're also focusing on that, in this case, an animal, his healing, and not on, you know, the side effects that are pretty strong. And they were pretty severe with me. You know, everything that the doctor said, you know, there's a 1% of people. And well, that happened to me. So I was like, okay. Wow. No, but so I started focusing on positive gifts that I had, like making people laugh and that kind of thing. And then there was a movie premiere that I went to in the middle of my treatments where I was really feeling the worst. I was bald, I was weak, my eyes were sunken, I was very pale. And I just filmed a movie a couple months before I was diagnosed. And I was invited to go to New York City to Lincoln Center for the premiere of the movie. Oh. So my boyfriend, you know, my husband now, but my boyfriend at the time, you know, we decided I should go. You know, that would be something good for me. And so it kind of became a Cinderella story because I went and bought the whitest dress I found. I bought the whitest wig. I was very afraid because I was afraid my wig would fall off. You know, I had to draw eyebrows on my face. I've never been an expert. Wow. You know, there were certain things that gave me fear. Plus, you know, all the Puerto Rican people that were there knew what I was going through. The governor of Puerto Rico was going to be there with the first lady. And so that big moment where, you know, after I did my red carpet and I was there introduced to the governor of Puerto Rico, when my husband saw how he came up to me and he was very respectfully, he bowed and he kissed my hand, my husband. That is a Cinderella moment. And from that moment on, he started calling me Chemorella. And it just made me feel so special that I felt like a princess, you know. It's very emotional for me.
I can see that now. Yeah.
You know, it was my husband making me feel special and the love we had that created this book. So.
Now, one of the things, sometimes people go through something like this. It's like a lot of things in life. You find out not just who your friends are and who they aren't, but you also learn, I think, who handles things well and who doesn't. Were there people around you who just didn't know what to say or didn't know what to do, or that just kind of dropped out of your life for a little while because they just couldn't handle it themselves?
Oh, yes, and that's part of my jokes because, you know, as serious as the illness is, there's a part of me that is silly. I took everything the doctor said and the treatment serious, but right around the corner was silly Katy, you know, you know, some people just run away. They don't know what to say. They're afraid of it because they are confronted with their mortality. Oh, my God. I'm going to die. They don't think about the person that's diagnosed. They go, oh, I can die. I could get that. You know, some people even think it could be even contagious. So some friends totally disappear because they cannot handle it. And then new ones come into your life. And like my husband says, you know, the bad apples must go, but then you keep the good ones. And those people that stay with you and that support you become your friends forever. There's been my friends for 7 years. Mm-hmm. So people come for a very short time and then they move on because they think, oh, it's over now. Now she's okay. And then they don't dare to call you because they think, oh my God, what if she's not okay again? What if something happened to her? What if she died, you know? Right. And I'm going to call her. So there's all these fears that people go through. But in general, the true friends are the ones that come into your life at that time and say, you know, and family. I can't say enough about family. I know that you went through a diagnosis also, and it's not easy, but sometimes family will stick with you and sometimes they won't. But, you know, I have a Puerto Rican family. They're all of you. They're all calling. They came to visit me. They gave me support. So that was very nice. That was, you know, priceless.
And tell me about Ken. At the time, he was your boyfriend. You weren't married yet. What were you ever worried that something like this would scare him off? And what is it about him that made him strong enough to get you both through this?
Well, the first thing is Ken, I had never had a healthy relationship with a man. They were all really pretty scary and pretty, you know, a little bit crazy. So when I met Ken in 2002, and I was diagnosed in 2005. So when I was diagnosed, the first thing that one thinks about, or at least I thought about, was what's my purpose in life? Why do I want to even fight this just for life?
Hmm.
I don't have children. I'm not married. I've paid all my taxes. I really don't owe money, so my parents are not going to have the burden of having my debt, that kind of thing. And I thought, why do I want to fight this? And Ken had an office where he worked out of, and he moved his office to the house. And one day I'm at the hallway, looking at him, and he was working. He wanted to be close to me during the process. And I looked at him and I thought, man, this man really, really loves me. And I decided at that moment that's why I wanted to fight my cancer, because I wanted to live and survive, because I had just met the man that adored me, that I had loved, that I realized right there that I was in love with, and I couldn't go that quickly. I needed to, be there for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And so that gave me force. And Ken always says that my diagnosis of cancer gave him the opportunity as a man to take care of someone, to change significantly someone's life and do something positive for someone, and that I was that opportunity that he had waited his whole life for. So this is, very deep, and that's how he gave me strength, by just being there and supporting me. And then I grabbed his strength and used mine, and with my determination, because I don't wait for things. When I was diagnosed, 5 days later, I had surgery. I said, well, when do we start the chemotherapy? It's 21 days later. Okay, at day 21, I start my chemotherapy. I did everything, one thing after the other. And the way I am. When I had the little nodule in my thyroid, within a week, okay, surgery. It doesn't belong in my body. Take it out. And he was very impressed by that, by the determination and how I was doing things. And you kind of think of everything that you have done afterwards, after you do it. You're like in an automatic mode, to do this, to eat this, and then you go, okay, what did I do? How did I do that? Are you sure I did that? That kind of thing. So.
And so all this eventually leads to this book.
Chemorella. We started the stories together. There was a lot of parallelism between my life and my story and the real story of Cinderella. And, Cinderella is a story about overcoming adversity, and she's poor, and then, the prince saves her. She finds love, and they live happily ever. The difference with Chemorella is that she does everything on her own. There's no magic in the story, as you know. There's no fairy godmother. She doesn't become a pumpkin, and she doesn't have. The only time issue she has is doing her treatments to overcome her cancer. So Chemorella, I think that the magic of Chemorella is that it's about overcoming adversity. It's about how you turn your life into something positive, using your gifts and the love that you find yourself, that you have around you during adversity. And she does meet love. I think love is like one of the most powerful things in life, and she loses her hair, but then she'll get it back. She loses the rock star prince, because it's all modern, so he's a rock.
Of course.
Not a prince, he's a rock star. Actually, we kind of got a teeny bit inspired by Ricky Martin when you see, the illustration with the little hair. Really cute. And then she finds her prince, and they find each other when she gets her confidence back. And so that's how we ended up creating and doing the story, forming the story with all the details. I needed a happy ending, because that's what we all hope for. It's the hope that everything is going to be okay. And, Ken had written before for The Young and the Restless. He has written books, how to What to Do When Your Dog Is Injured or Killed. He composed music for Hollywood movies. And so he had done a lot of that before. And he knew the structure of Cinderella very well. He's an English major, literature major also. So he had all that great stuff. And it was a formula that everyone can relate to and that really has gotten very powerful when people read Chemorella. I had a woman recently that had her son going through treatment, not cancer. He was going through different kind of treatment. He was missing some bone and doing some skin graft and some really serious, intense things at the Shriners Hospitals for Children. And the mother read the book. She's from Mexico, and she read the book once and twice and three times, and she says, Kathy, I keep reading it because it reminds me of what other people are going through and that I can go through it too. And in this specific case, it had to do with hair life with her son. And, she said, every time I know that I chose the right decision, that I made the right decision, I chose life over hair for my son, it makes me feel good that I did the right thing. So it has impacted people. It impacts me every time I read it also. And it's just a wonderful experience because it comes from truth and it comes from honesty from two authors, to a husband and a wife that went through something and overcame it. Knock on wood.
Please. And there's two interesting factors about the book that I like too. One is that it's side by side, Spanish and English. So no language barrier there for a vast majority of people. And I got to give credit to Scott Sackett. The illustrations are really good. Where did you find him?
Yeah, well, when we first wrote the book, we did not know what we were going to do with it because we didn't write it for any purpose specifically. And so there was this producer here in Hollywood that did animation, and he said, oh my God, this is a perfect, Oscar-winning, animated film or feature film, and so he brought in Scott Sackett, and we sat and we showed him pictures, and I had posed and I had worn, some different kinds of wigs and showed him the process of my breast cancer. And then that all fell through, but we kept Scott, and then we thought, well, what are we going to do? And I thought, oh, well, okay. My husband and I decided, you know what? Let's make it a book. I liked it because it was not my autobiography. It was a universal story about anyone overcoming adversity. We started loving the illustrations that Scott was drawing. My husband directed and actually designed the book. So between them, they did this beautiful book with beautiful colors. And then we said, okay, now who's going to publish this? We've never been publishers or anything in our life. And I said, oh, well, I'll go to Puerto Rico and I'm going to publish it in Puerto Rico. And so we published a hardcover in Puerto Rico, handmade. We had 4 women that were hand making that hardcover. I mean, it was amazing to see it. We have film of Houston, and I had to prove the colors, and I suddenly had an expert, in publishing. And then we decided to send away for 3 samples of the book. Got the book back. I was so emotional. I was so happy. It was so beautiful. Then we decided to go into production. And so that's how we started our first run of the book. And we've done a couple of them now, but we've done everything, only him and I. We haven't had like anyone backing or sponsors or anything. And what I do is, what's wonderful is I've started educating students and teenagers with the book and laughter therapy, and they just love it. So it's a very innovative way of exposing the topic of cancer.
Well, and of course the important question now is, where can people find the book? How can they order the book?
Well, you can find the book on our website, Chemorella.com, and you can also find it on Amazon.com. So we have hardcover, we have the soft cover, and we're also coming out with the iBook and ebook version of it for all those tech people who have their computers and different tablets. But Amazon.com and Chemorella.com, you can find it.
Very good. Very good. Well, folks, that kind of tells you what I was going to end up with, but I'll repeat it anyway in case you somehow missed it. You can find Katy Franco's first book, written with her husband, Ken Phillips, and illustrations by Scott Sackett. It's online at Chemorella.com. You can see behind her, if you're watching the video, that it's Chemorella.com. Or you can find it right here at MrMedia.com. We'll have the book available on. You can order it here. Order it right now. Great price. Also from Amazon.com. Is there a? Do you have a Facebook page or Twitter that people can follow you?
Page called Chemorella. We have the Spanish Facebook page called Chemorella, which is the Spanish title. QuimioRela. I feel like. And I want to tell you, Bob, that for everyone who purchases the book and through you, we have the bands that have one of the most important messages, which is everyone who knows you loves you. If you always remember in the worst moment of your life, in a moment you have to make a decision, a moment you feel sad and you're all by yourself, that everyone who knows you loves you. And who doesn't love you, it's because they don't know you. So everyone who knows you loves you. Really help you.
Very good. Well, Katy, it was a pleasure to meet you and enjoyed reading the book. And thank you very much for joining us on Mr. Media today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure and a privilege, and I hope that we talk again.
That'd be nice. Good luck to you and stay healthy.
Thank you. Thank you. Likewise.
You can see and hear almost 1,000 Mr. Media interviews by visiting our main site, MrMedia.com, mrmedia.com. Or check out the more than 200 video interviews on the Mr. Media radio site on YouTube. And I'd sure appreciate if you'd show some love for Mr. Media's advertisers, including Stitcher. Apple named Stitcher a top 5 news app of 2011. It's a free mobile app for your smartphone or tablet that lets you listen to your favorite shows and discover the best of news, entertainment, and sports on demand. You can listen whenever you want to more than 5,000 shows, get customized recommendations, and discover what your friends are listening to. My own list of Stitcher favorites is pretty eclectic. I start my day with an hour of MSNBC's Morning Joe with Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski. Then it's the latest 2-minute update from the Onion News Network. After that, I'll listen to WTF with Mark Maron, Here's the Thing with Alec Baldwin, HBO's Real Time with Bill Maher, and excerpts from E's Chelsea Lately and The Soup with Joel McHale. Also in regular rotation on my Stitcher playlist, The BS Report with ESPN's Bill Simmons, the TechCrunch headlines, and The Don Geronimo Show. The latest episodes of each show, whether originating from broadcasts, cable TV, radio syndication, or podcasts, are continuously updated. Stitcher is a free app for your iPhone, iPad, Kindle, Fire, BlackBerry, Droid, and more. And show your support of Mr. Media by getting, did I mention it's free? The app at Stitcher.com/Mr. Media. That's Stitcher.com/MR Media. Stitcher Smart Radio, the smarter way to listen to radio. We're also supported by Audible. Check out Audible's 30-day trial membership and download the audiobook version of the book everyone's been talking about, 50 Shades of Grey by E.L. James. Sign up for your free trial today at audible.com/radio. Again, audibletrial.com/radio. And finally, if you need a disc jockey for a wedding, bar mitzvah, corporate event, or just a big old party, please consider calling 1-800-DIAL-DJs, the party authority for all your party entertainment needs. You can call 1-800-DIAL-DJs or go to their website, 1-800-DIAL-DJs.com, and tell them Mr. Media sent you. And thanks for listening.